bring the grains down, too. Well, just unload.
Yeah. I should have brought the fucking yeast today.
You should have, God. Make Josh bring it to us.
I gotta remember to get it out of my house. It's a big jug.
Alright, we're good. Live.
Gucci gang.
But, yeah, I mean, honestly, it takes, for 6 barrels, we're probably looking at 2 hours, maybe. Less.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I don't open till 3.
Cheat sheet.
Kind of what I figured. You being closed today. I didn't know if you were open Monday or
Nope, I closed Monday
Tuesday.
too. I haven't checked the keg. I don't know how low
We
it
could do
is.
some Tuesday also.
I don't know.
Tuesdays. No. And that's kind of what I figured. It was
Welcome everybody to the Genus Brewing live stream.
at time it wouldn't be
I need to get this out of my face a little bit.
that big of a deal.
We're hopefully going to
It
be
is
back on
nice,
track doing
close, and
this
sexy.
every Sunday, and some of those Sundays we'll even be prepared for it. Today, for those of you wondering, we're joined by Damon from No Drought Brewing Company. He also loves animals and is an avid lobster killer.
And for those of you that don't get the reference, go watch the video because
don't.
it is absolutely fantastic. I mean, the whole video as a whole, but just to watch those lobsters go in was...
Okay.
One of the top 10 lobster killings that I've ever seen.
This is pretty convenient. Howdy to Billy Harney. It's evening in Dublin, and coincidentally, you might line up quite well with what we're talking about today.
I mean, he probably figured that out with the title of the thing when he clicked on it.
No,
but he already said
nobody
it.
reads the title. If it is evidence and don't click this, not real, nobody reads the titles anymore.
That's true. That is true.
Or they just love us.
Yeah. Before we jump into the actual episode, let's talk about some new things that happened in Genus Brewing worlds. Lobsters. That's 1 week from yesterday. Lobster, beer, lobster.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this upcoming Saturday.
This upcoming Saturday.
This upcoming Saturday.
Is it the 19th?
The
Yeah,
19th.
it's the 19th, yeah.
Yes.
Lobster soup, Emerus fermentations, meads, all that jazz. Gonna be
All
fun.
that stuff. There is a very small possibility that there will be a mead pop up before that, and it is tiny right now. Both Thomas is busy doing a lot of great stuff. But if it doesn't happen this week, it will happen soon. And so also be looking for that. Look for us to pair with Thomas to put some of his meads on tap and feature them.
Cubone bone. New seltzer. Put a new seltzer on tap.
Oh yeah, we have a strawberry lemonade seltzer on tap. That's tasting pretty darn awesome. As well as I don't think we did this last week because it wasn't on last week. The sour mango milkshake IPA.
Oh yeah, that's
And
brand
that
new.
is phenomenal. That is fruit juice. If you have not tried it.
Also, Matt, come explain the style thing while I change some ISO stuff.
Style thing? What style thing?
Style, Matt's organizing through the Discord and our YouTube.
Oh, it's style competition thing. Yeah, go.
Style competition.
Yeah, go for that.
Yeah, so to make us all better brewers and everything, I am organizing a brew to as close to style kind of competition where we can critique each other's recipes and then talk about the beers and post pictures and all that fun jazz. And you can also send your beer to Genus for them to taste.
Hashtag show us your genus.
And also on all the social medias, hashtag show us your genus, and that's going to start in March. And in honor of St. Patrick's Day, we're going to do an Irish Stout.
Yeah. Well, okay, whatever.
Unless Tim wants me to do a different style.
No, that's fine. I always have fun, actually, during St. Patrick's Day, bringing out a lot of different Irish styles that people don't associate with that. What was it? Well, last year we were closed down because of COVID, but the year before we did the Irish Lager, and that was phenomenal, actually.
I may have been a
IRL?
little drunk when I figured this out.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's one of those things, I mean, okay. So for those of you in not America land, St. Patty's Day for us is a chance to take really, really crappy made seltzer, color it and flavor it to look like it might be beer, and then put some green dye in it because...
That's one of my favorite things to do.
Like, reasons. Instead of just making an actually really delicious Irish style of beer. So I always find it fun on St. Paddy's Day to make some of the different Irish styles out there besides just Irish dry stout and really crappy colored beer.
Soapbox of the week.
It's not quite a soapbox. I'm not exactly complaining about it. I'm just insulting people who think that you should drink green beer on St. Paddy's Day.
I think you should drink green beer on St. Paddy's Day.
I think you should drink green beer after St. Paddy's Day.
I think we should make a deliciously dark Irish stout and put a ton of green food coloring in it.
that actually, I would do something like that. That would be fun. That would be fun. But why are you drinking light, crappy American beer on St. Paddy's Day when you could be drinking delicious Irish beer?
Because I wear my flag year round. Something about colors and stuff like that.
Something
These colors don't run from Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, literally. Well,
I don't know
actually,
what either of you are talking about
I
right
think
now.
that they do because you are a pretty good
Oh
runner.
my goodness.
That's true.
And if you saw a whole country, literally just a landmass running after you, you probably at least take a few steps away.
Yeah, I mean, or find a really sharp rock and dive into it. Because one of those two is going to be it's either going to be quick or it's going to be not. So.
Right.
Anyways.
Okay.
Jimmy, morning guys. Lager Yeast looks to be the winner for my split batch. Awesome.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what he's talking about, Jimmy actually lives in town. He came out to do a split batch of beer. Got a couple of different yeasts to do that with, and looks like the lager strain he chose is doing pretty well for him. So
Yeah.
bring both in and we'll taste it for you.
Let us know if the TVs in the back are distracting. Just put them out for some extra light and some activity behind us.
Yeah, I mean,
thought it
I'm
was
definitely watching him.
Yeah, yeah. Every once in a while, I'll see something on the bottom. We got the Pocket Mons on that side, and we've got the Dragon Balls on that side.
The Pocket Mons? I thought they were both. Oh, yeah, that was. Never mind.
Dragon Ball.
And now it's time for the
Beer of the week, bump, 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 beer of the week.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Woo. And you guys will not be able to guess what style we picked this week.
Not at all. What are we going for, Dan?
Stout.
Irish Stout.
Irish Stout.
That's the correct pronunciation if you live in Wales.
Yep, that's what I heard. I think somebody is in Dublin right now. They can verify that for sure.
Wales is not even where close to Dublin. They are two different countries,
they are
and some
relatively
people
close.
might really take offense to that.
Wales to Dublin's like here to Missoula.
At least you didn't
That's
call
2
it
hours.
in England, though. I mean, at least you didn't say England.
I didn't say that. Irish Stout, 15B.
Yeah, all right.
Category 15B, and that's in the post-2015 style guidelines. And after 2015, there is now a dry stout and Irish stout separate categories. In the 2008 style guidelines, I want to say dry Irish stout was just the Irish stout category. Either way, this is going to be a drier stout. Overall impressions, this is a black beer, not to be confused with a polar beer. The best.
Okay. You guys
You're
are on
so
something this
close.
morning. Holy cow.
With a pronounced
Coffee.
roasted flavor. Yeah, loaded up on coffee. With
Apparently
pronounced
I'm
roasted
not.
flavor, often similar to coffee. The balance can range from fairly even to quite bitter, with the more balanced versions being a little malty sweetness on the bitter versions, and bitter versions being quite dry. Those things.
Okay, so I'm actually going to apologize to you right now, Damon, because Bill Harney says he can actually see Wales from Dublin on a clear day. So
Oh, thank you.
I
Thank
apologize
you.
for that.
Yeah,
You
as
clarified
should.
it.
That is a win for me.
Just you don't put Dublin in the UK. That's a no-no.
I know where Dublin is. My wife is very Irish.
Well, I mean, she's very American, but I like
This
the
is
Irish
true.
heritage. I like the
There
Irish
you go.
heritage.
I'm like 33% Irish.
I don't know what's going on.
50%.
Yeah. One.
Any of the O'Boyle clan left in Ireland? You got one over here.
2/3 of one of my parents is Ireland.
Choose.
That's the country.
Just the whole country, all at once. All right.
The
the
Draft
bal-
versions are
That's it.
typically creamy from a nitro pour, but bottle versions will not have this dense draft character. The roasted flavor can be dry and coffee-like and somewhat chocolatey. Here's something that's important to talk about. Nitrogen kind of serves two functions. One, in beer, it's going to decarbonate. It's going to make a non-carbonated or a less carbonated beer. And carbonation actually makes carbonic acid in beer, so it makes acidity. And acidity and bitterness, I mean, they can go together, but generally speaking, you want to kind of balance acidity with sweetness. Nitrogen also, to some effect, it's relatively insoluble, but what does dissolve actually tastes relatively sweet on your palate. And so a nitro pour serves to create that balance without actually adding sweetness from sugar in the beer.
It's actually something that not enough people know when they search out those nitro beers is that when you're actually having a nitro beer, the massive head on it, the fallout, all of that serves to strip CO2 out of the beer. That is something that is making your beer more flat, less carbonated. And that's for a point. That is so you can actually experience more beer flavor and more sweetness coming out of it, like Peter said, instead of, the prickly acidity that comes out of having a full carb beer.
Yeah.
And it says that bottled versions will not have this dispense-derived character. That's not exactly true anymore. We have some very, very good bottle and can versions of nitro beers between the widgets as well as special bottling practices. I mean, I know Guinness, a lot of Guinness doesn't even have the widgets in it anymore. Just how they bottle it and how they instruct people to pour it will give you that same thing. And if you're a bartender or a beer server out there serving nitro beers from cans and bottles, it is very worth it to learn how to properly pour out of a nitro beer out of a bottle, because it just impresses your guests and gets you more tips, and that's always fun. Yeah. It makes you look cool.
And looking cool is the point.
That's what I do.
Yeah. That's why he's here.
Yeah, to make Tim and I look
just
better.
Just a little bit. All right. Appearance. Are we on appearance? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jet black color to very deep brown with garnet highlights in color. According to Guinness, which is kind of the progenitor of this style, Guinness beer may appear black, but it is actually a very dark shade of ruby. Opaque, thick, creamy, long-lasting tan to brown colored head is characteristic when serving on nitro, but don't expect the tight, creamy head on a bottled beer. Again, you can achieve that from the bottled beer if you pour properly or if they have the good widgets in there. But that's it. That is a big thing to these beers too. While they're not necessarily black, they're so dark red, they're black.
That's not the only way to get tight, creamy head.
It is not.
Why did I join this?
Because you said yes, and Peter's very convincing.
I wish you would have told me the beer style I had. It's because I literally have Guinness in my fridge that I could have brought.
You should have done that.
You should have.
You didn't tell me we were doing Irish Stout.
I didn't know until
20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
You should have just brought it anyway, right? Oh, this guy here. And that's actually something kind of important to hit on here, is that it's actually a dark shade of ruby, and it's very hard to see that. But there is a good clarity to Irish stouts as well. You don't versus some of the other big stouts. You should have a pretty good clarity on this. You should be able to see that ruby color through it if you shine a light in it. So, all right, where are we at? Aroma.
Moderate coffee-like aroma dominates. It may have a slight dark chocolate, cocoa and/or roasted grain secondary notes. Esters are going to be medium-low to none. Hop aroma low to none. Maybe lightly earthy or floral, but is typically absent. Overall, you're going straight from beer flavor and smell to roast flavor and smell with not very much in between. I do like to say, because it's characteristic of Irish yeast, I get a little bit of what I call a funk. And that funk can often be construed with like beer character, and it blends very well into the roast character. So you really got to search it out. But if you have a proper Irish stout, there's a little bit of like face scrunchiness going on there. And that's a good thing. And that's probably what they're lumping in with the esters in this description. But it's not going to be fruity.
It's not going to be fruity. And in all honesty, where that probably came from historically is Britannia-Macy's finishing these beers out. Mm-hmm. The Irish yeast, very, very strong fermenter, getting almost all the sugars done, and just at the tail end, there's probably some Brett Lambicus finishing it out, providing some light little bits of funk in there that are so beautiful in this style that you really don't get from pretty much anything else.
Hey, Bill Hardy just jumped on the same thing.
Yeah.
Guinness has a souring component using separately mixed firm to mimic the bacteria found in barrels from times past. How would you introduce this, and what would you use? 2 ways to do this: Irish ale yeast mixed with a little bit of Brett, or I know some people will use actually acid malt instead to give an actual souring component. I just like to take 2 different beers and mix them together.
That's a wonderful, wonderful way to do it. Blending is... Here's my soapbox for today, actually. Okay. I'm not going to get too far onto it, but blending, brewers need to be less afraid of blending. Blending is beautiful. All the best liquors in the world are blended. The best wines out there are blended. We should not be afraid of this. If your beer is missing something or you need to add an extra component, but it's hard to get in there, make a secondary beer and blend it together for something better. That's all that it can do, is make your beer better. And who doesn't want to be better? You know, unless you're toxic, and then you just stay in your hole.
Taste of the lips.
A West Coast IPA Kolsch just sounds so good.
Oh, like our India Pale Kolsch that we did. Yeah. That was amazing, actually.
Or
that
every
was
once in a while,
really
you just want, some of the IPA flavors, but you want it a little lighter.
And there you go.
Blend them together.
So that's a really, actually, great way to do this. Finishing it out with Brett. There are some other yeast out there that are meant to do this. From Omega, there's a yeast called Gulo, which is actually really good at adding just a touch of farmhousiness to it.
Just a bit outside.
Gulo is a hybridization of Irish ale yeast and French Saison, remarkably clean for that Saison being in there. But if you push the fermentation temperature up a little high, you can actually get it to get a little funky farmhouse in there, and that is a beautiful yeast for this. Also, where was it? I saw another good question in here. Oh yeah, Tanner Cole. If you make a stout and throw a ton of Lucky Charms in it, does it make it an Irish stout? No, it just makes everybody want it and come after you. They're always trying to get your stout.
I got it.
It wasn't a great joke.
I got
it wasn't a great joke. All right, sorry.
I wasn't listening.
In all honesty, that's not a bad way to dry out your stout. Marshmallows are made of sugar. They're going to ferment all the way out there, and it could make it a lot drier.
Yeah.
So, go for it. Do it.
Try it.
All right.
What's the worst that could happen?
No.
Flavor.
You want to take this one?
Sure. All right. Moderate roasted grain or malt flavor with a medium to high hop bitterness. The finish can be dry and coffee-like to moderately balanced with a touch of caramel or malty sweetness. Typically has coffee-like flavors, but also has bittersweet or unsweetened chocolate character in the palate lasting into the finish. Balancing factors may include some creaminess, medium, low to no fruitiness, and medium to no hop flavor. The level of bitterness is somewhat variable, as is the roasted character and the dryness of the finish. Allow for interpretation by brewers. That's a nice little snippet.
Basically saying we don't all make them the same.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm kind of noticing here, both on the color and on the flavor descriptors, is they're not really matching what the BJCP is saying as characteristic ingredients. Because in the characteristic ingredients, it's got roasted barley, flaked barley, and pale malt. And that's pretty much all I've seen every recipe made with. Now, if you're doing that as a single infusion mash with a normal 16-minute boil, you're not going to get any of those ruby highlights. You're not going to get any of that developing character that makes it a dark, clear ruby color, and there shouldn't be any caramel sweetness from it because you're not using caramel malts. That said, if the original pale malt that they were using was a higher protein malt, this is something we mentioned in last week's live stream, there can be more Maillard reaction and more caramelization that happens during the boiling process. And if you choose to do a longer boil, you can build some character development. I will say it's not 100% necessary if you want to go Americanized style Guinness, which is, black, fluffy, drinking pale beer.
I was going to say disappointing.
Yeah. There's a time and a place.
There is. It's not a bad beer.
You can skip the extra levels of that, but if you wanted to get some development, then switch your pale malts to a slightly higher protein pale malt, and do a little extra boiling.
What I also mean disappointing on that is if you've had Irish Guinness, every time you have Guinness that we get here in American, it is just disappointing. It is not the same. It is not the same.
Steph said he's heard rumors of an elusive blonde stout. Is that even possible? Yeah, we call it a white stout, but yeah.
Blonde stout, white stout, any of that works really well.
Your coffee roasting flavors we just get from roasted coffee.
Yeah. You can use something like blonde roasted oats as well to get some of the roasty character out of there. And then, chocolate.
Little cacao. Some cocoa nibs.
Get the coffee and chocolate flavors from coffee and chocolate.
And if you do it right, you don't get the color. So it ends up being, and you want to start with a very pale base, and you get, a very pale stout flavored beer.
Fun fact: cocoa nibs don't melt.
No.
Didn't know that 3 years ago. when I made
Cocoa nibs,
coffee
actually, that's
order.
not a bad thing. Cocoa nibs are actual parts of cocoa beans.
Yeah.
Just like coffee beans in there. No, they don't melt because that is not chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
That is chocolate where chocolate comes from, but not exactly chocolate. That's, it's actually, there's some things like that we just kind of take for granted because we've been doing it for so long. We're like, oh yeah, they're chocolate beans, of course.
Yeah.
But then you think about it to someone new coming into brewing, they're like, oh, cocoa nibs, that's got to be like little tiny chunks of chocolate I can throw in there, right?
Yeah. Just hard chocolate. I tried to eat one. I was
exactly.
like, this is not good, but hopefully it turns out good in the beer. And it did, but
Actually,
I had to dismantle my pump because it was just the cocoa nibs got stuck and clogged everything.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to run those
It
through.
was terrible.
Yeah, I will say cocoa nibs are delicious though.
Oh,
I
it
do
was
like
good.
to eat them. If you roast them a little bit,
That's your roasting
delicious.
hand gesture?
All right, yeah, that's my roasting hand gesture. Okay, so Bruno, Dave, single barrel malt whiskey is not blended. Just saying. Yeah, you are just saying that. What also, like literally, it's one of those statements. If people say it, they say it. It's just one of the most. I'm not calling you out at all. I'm really not trying to insult anybody, but a lot of people say that, and what it translates to me is like I'm a know-it-all asshole. And literally, I'm not saying that to you right now. I really am not. But when you hear people say, I'm just saying, like, yeah, you are just being a passive-aggressive asshole. Thank you.
Not you.
Not
Other
you,
people.
not you. And actually, I was going to get into that. No, the single barrel malt whiskeys are not. But what they do is go through, find the best single barrels that taste the best, put those into the single barrel bottles, then take all of the other barrels from that same run of whiskey and blend them to make them taste better. Because not every barrel is good and can be used for a single barrel.
Yep.
Just like beer. You can make great beers that are single. If you don't have a great beer, you can blend it in with another beer and make it better. We just shouldn't be afraid of it. That's my whole statement. We should not be afraid of it. If you have something that tastes beautiful by yourself, don't blend it. Don't need to.
And when it comes to, it's the same thing when it comes to higher end wines. Like a really, really good barrel of wine straight off the wine might be like 97 or 98% that wine. But then they got a little bit of like, hey, we need to, curb this acidity or add acidity. And so do just a little bit of blending to make it,
That's actually something that a lot of consumers don't understand about the wine industry. When you go to the store and buy a Cab Sauv or a Cab Franc or a Merlot off the shelf, that is not 100% that varietal at all. Winemakers, it's a lot looser around the world. In the United States, I don't remember the exact percentage, but I think it's like 85 to 90% that varietal. The rest of it is blends to help boost and support other flavors in there. So even if you buy at a store the wine that says Cab Sauv, it's not 100% Cab Sauv generally. Now, it might be in some cases, and they might have some different barrels from different vineyards that do different things that support it, but a lot of the time it's actually not. You're blending things in to help support and enhance the flavor. And that's, as brewers, we shouldn't be afraid to help support and enhance our beers when necessary. All right, I'm done with that. We're off of that.
Tongue in cheek on blending. Coconut, guava,
Yeah.
pink peppercorn, mango, milkshake, hazy, New England IPA, aged in oak barrels, recover from a shipwreck.
I would be down for that, honestly.
Deal.
I
Yeah, we
think
could
that,
try it.
honestly,
Find the barrel.
Yeah.
From the shipwreck.
that could have some really good funky yeast
That's
in
what
it,
I'm
though.
like. You've got all that fruitiness to it, and there's some pseudo sourness because the guava and the
Wait,
peppercorns are
peppercorns?
spicy, and then
The peppercorns with the mango. That's the part that excites me the most about that. Thank you. I'm not.
find the shipwreck. We'll make it happen.
Yeah,
I feel like people think I'm being mean, and I'm really not trying to be mean. And I really want to say to Bruno, Dave, I am not trying to be mean to you at all. I'm not trying to.
Some
be
people have
insulting
resting
to
bitch
anybody.
face. Tim has resting bitch voice.
100% I do. My wife hates it. And a lot of the time, I have to tell her, listen to my words, not my tone. And I'm really not. It's one of those things. I mean, as a sour brewer, we blend a lot. I love doing that. I just, it's one of those things. I have to drink it pure. But if you can make it better, why wouldn't you make it better?
One of my favorite things, because I know Tim, to watch him do is when there's a customer that comes in and they say something that's wrong. He doesn't like say, oh no, it's actually this. The first thing he says every single time is, No.
Yes.
And then there's a pause after that. Like, it doesn't, it's just like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Very accentuated.
You say it a little bit different. Most of the time, I'm like, nah.
No.
no,
Nope.
I appreciate it.
But
I appreciate it.
I'm normally
Point
trying.
out.
Yeah, nah. I try to add in extra hand gestures into it. I try to be
Make it
over-expressive because I realize that I sound like a dick most of the time. I do, and I really try not to. And generally, that's followed up with, "All right,
soapbox.
now let me explain to you why I think that's wrong."
It
And
takes a
lot
while.
of the
It
time-
takes a while to get there, and it takes people listening for like 2 minutes to realize, he wasn't being an asshole. He just-
Yeah, well, I
funny
do
to
do
watch,
it a
it really
little
is.
bit too late, but I normally try to throw in, this is my opinion, this is what I found out works for us, this is why we think it works. But yeah, a lot of the time people are like, oh God, okay, no, when I met you, it was like, this guy. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's just...
Tim, you're insulting. I'm just saying.
I am. I very much
Loathsome,
am. I
offensive
apologize.
Mouthfeel,
that.
medium
Anyway.
light to medium full body with a somewhat
Oh, yeah.
creamy character, particularly when served on a nitro pour. Low to moderate carbonation for the high hop bitterness and significant proportion of dark grains. What did I say? For the high hop
For the
bitterness,
high hop bitter... Okay, well,
the
that's...
proportion of dark grains present. Oh, this beer is remarkably smooth. So for the amount of bitterness that it has, this beer is remarkably smooth. May have light astringency from the roasted grains, although harshness is undesirable. So that comes from two things. One is the nitro, if it's on nitro pour, smoothing out comparison to the high hop bitterness and roasted grains. And from the fact that you use some sort of high protein malt to give it fluff, normally flaked barley. And we had a comment from Jimmy earlier saying that he likes to use flaked rye, which is another fun option because flaked rye is going to actually have a little bit higher protein and different kinds of protein that will help the Maillard reaction and caramelize. You guys you know what I'm
flavors,
saying.
caramelized
you guys
flavors
get it.
and all that good stuff. I will say it's important to note here high hop bitterness, not high hop rate.
Right.
There's not a ton of hops going into this beer, but where you're putting most of it is into the bittering section.
Yeah, somebody earlier actually commented, like, what's a good hop for this? In my mind, it's like Warrior or Magnum, like whatever you can use a small amount of to get the bitterness there. I think traditionally it's probably like Kent Goldings, but I really don't think it matters. If you can use less hops, it's going to be easier to make it smooth in my mind.
Yeah.
Something is really high alpha acids.
Yeah.
I use a lot of Magnum for.
Magnum.
The
Because
one
you have
barrel.
100% of Germany inside of you.
I didn't know you were German.
I know he's a me.
I know.
Oh yeah, I'm German.
No.
Did you get his joke?
Now I did.
missed that.
You too. You too. Again, why am I here? Oh my god. But yes, I use a lot of Magnum. One barrel, I use anywhere from like 3 to 4 ounces at 60 minutes, and it gets a lot of bitterness from it.
Yeah. But you don't have to use a ton, so you don't have the hot material kind of also competing for the same, bittering part of this whole realm.
Somebody's playing bingo here.
Yeah, are they trying to...
They're fishing for a question. We're not gonna let you mark that one off yet. Yeah, Magnum. I love Magnum too. Just the easy,
Now I got it.
soft spiciness, the hoppiness. It gives you such a beautiful, indistinct hoppiness. You're like, yeah, this is a beautiful hoppiness in this beer. It's hoppy. That's it.
So I use my German IPA.
Magnum
I
is.
love it.
Yolas Kriff. What happened to the other guy? He just grew up.
He did. He hit the gym really hard, beefed out a little bit.
Gained 100
His
pounds.
beard is actually the same size, but his face filled out, which is why it looks shorter.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, comments.
Comments.
When a brewery offered a stout and a porter, a stout was always a stronger beer. It was originally called the Stout Porter. That's a whole other topic. Modern versions are brewed from a lower original gravity and no longer necessarily reflect a higher strength than porters. This is a great example of one that doesn't. This is typically a draft product. Today, bottle versions are typically brewed from a higher original gravity and are usually called extra stouts. By the way, Guinness Extra Stout is way better than Guinness Draft in bottles.
Especially here in the U.S.
Yeah. Regional differences exist in Ireland, similar to variability in English bitters. Dublin type stouts use roasted barley, are more bitter and drier. Cork type stouts are sweeter, less bitter, and have flavors from chocolate and specialty malts. Commercial examples of this style are almost always associated with a nitro pour. Do not expect traditional bottle conditioned beers to have the full creamy texture or very long lasting head, traditionally associated with nitro dispense.
And actually, that's another good. They're throwing some great keywords into here. Bottle conditioned beer. That doesn't mean the nitro bottles and the nitro cans, anything like that. But what I will say, if it is a traditional bottle conditioned beer, that's probably personally where I would sit first, and then just pour hard and strip some CO2 out. Is that bottle conditioning is going to give you some extra delicious flavors coming out of it.
Bruno Dave is a member of the Scottish Malt Whiskey Society. And Scottish Malt, so Scottish whiskeys, a lot of the higher end whiskeys are single barrel. But I mean, there's still some really expensive blended Scotch whiskeys. That's a whole different story.
What?
Also, send us a bottle. When you find a really good one, send us
I
one.
know him. Kinda. He lives in our neighborhood. Sorry. We were talking a helicopter just like
Literally a helicopter.
drove by on the street.
Yeah.
Was it a military one?
That was yellow.
Okay, never mind. It wasn't him. We have a guy, if you've ever wondered why that helicopter skims our neighborhood and shines a spotlight down, he lives over there. There's an Air Force base close to us, and one of the helicopter pilots lives close to us, and every time in our neighborhood, every time he comes by, he spotlights his house for his kids.
wanna
And I
get a
love it
helicopter.
because it irritates all the
I did some
busybodies
research
in our neighborhood.
Yeah, it's true. But it's only like it's like $10,000 to get your pilot's license. Which I feel like that's not that bad actually. Like, if you think about going to school,
Well, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
you make a lot of money as
hey,
a helicopter pilot.
I will also agree with you. Although well, it depends on one. I will admit it. I will fully admit it, Dave. I'm not huge into Elas. If it gets way too smoky, I'm out. I'm out. I just might not have gotten there yet, but
No.
oh man.
Like Glenlivet, it's just too much for me.
Oh no, actually, you can take that back. The Glenlivet 15 might be one of my favorites.
It's the little
Macallan
Lefroy's
18.
that I'm not.
Macallan's
18 is my
alright.
go-to.
The Lefroy is the
Macallan's
frog's
nice 'cause they're, like,
breath is too
bourbony.
much.
They're sweeter.
Yeah.
Frog's breath is way too much. But
History. The style evolved
Anyway.
from attempts to capitalize on the success of London porters, but originally reflected a fuller, creamier, more stout body and strength. Guinness began brewing only porter in 1799, and a stout kind of porter around 1810. Irish stout diverged from London's single stout, or simply porter, in the late 1800s, with an emphasis on darker malts. Guinness was among the first breweries to use black patent malt for porters and stouts. In the 1820s, Guinness began using a roasted barley after World War II. When London brewers continued to use brown malts, Guinness started using flake barley in the 1950s, also increasing attenuation greatly. Guinness Draft was launched as a brand in 1959. Draft cans and bottles were developed in the late 1980s and 1990s. That's crazy. There's a whole backstory that goes into how porters and stouts and all the dark beers kind of emerged. Originally, brown malt was kind of the single malt used for all these, and basically the entire beer was party guiled, and the first thing that came out was the strongest, darkest beer, the stout porter. The middle runnings was the medium light beer. Those are the porters, and then you had all the pub beer. It was the last runnings. That's where like milds and stuff came from.
yeah, it's actually a really cool experiment to do at home. And talking about blending, the party guile or the multi-guile system. This is a really cool way to get extra complexity out of your beers while creating a bigger batch. Do the imperial runnings, do the middle runnings, do the last runnings off of it, ferment them all out independently for specific flavors or just with the same thing, and blend them all back together, and you're going to get a far more complex beer than you would have if you just would have fermented them all in one. It's a cool method to do it, and I think Fuller's London Pride might be one of the very, very few big commercial styles that still does this. So that's good. That's pretty cool. All right. Characteristic ingredients. Guinness is made using what?
I had like a fun.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Fun fact. I don't know if it's true. So,
Fun facts with Damon.
Yeah, it doesn't have the same ring.
Logan.
That's
Bro,
it right
Logan.
there. Fun facts
No.
with Buff Logan.
I thought I read that the Irish stout and the roasted malts became a thing in Ireland after World War II due to London having some type of like power crisis during the war, and so they weren't able to roast the malts themselves but Ireland didn't have that issue, so they were able to continue to roast the malts, which is why it became known as an Irish stout.
That very well could be a thing. I mean, after World War II, there.
Verify that, but that sounds familiar.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
That's on it.
Matt's
Look it up.
Googling it. All right, we'll find it
We got
out.
a research team on it.
It sounds right. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, a lot of England
Yeah.
was destroyed in World
Yeah.
War II, so they probably would have some problems with productions, especially with food shortages, grain shortages, things like that. Power going to keep, vital things going instead of just, although beer is vital.
Speaking of world wars,
But
world wars,
sounds like it could be
That's hard
right.
to say.
Wars of Worlds?
Wars of worlds.
War of the Worlds?
Wars.
Two-time champs. Just saying.
Two-time champs.
You got something.
We were on the winning side. We were on the winning side.
Whoa.
Here, I'm gonna need to move your phone over a little bit because mine's dead. Just right there. Just right there.
If that was insensitive to anybody,
Okay.
I am sorry.
Character? History or character?
Yeah, characteristic
That was-
ingredients.
that was more history.
Guinness is made using roasted barley, flaked barley, pale malt, but otherwise breweries don't necessarily use roasted barley. They can, but other brewers don't necessarily need to use roasted barley. They can use chocolate or other dark specialty malts. Whatever combination of malts or grains is used, the resulting product should be black. Cork-type stouts are perhaps closer to historical London-type stouts in comparison, with a varied grist not dominated by roasted barley. But this is a thing that we've done in a couple of different videos, and we did talk about it, especially the malt differences in last video, is that they were probably using whatever regional local malt that they could get a hold of.
Yep.
And those small differences really could have made big, those small differences in malts can make big differences in your beer. If somebody's using a more Maris Otter type of malt in a different region, then they're obviously getting a sweeter, denser beer than if they're using something, closer to the American-based two-row or something like that. So that could be one of the reasons that you're seeing big differences in the way the beer's developed, and then local regions just attach to those flavors. And now that we can buy any malts that we want, you're already attached to that flavor, so you're using those specific malts. The basics here is don't be afraid to use different malts in there to achieve the same things.
As long as they're not caramel malts.
That is 100% true. Irish stout should not be caramely sweet. That is a different style of stout. It may be delicious, but that is a different style.
Should we talk about these stats?
We should talk a little bit about stats, eh? Stats.
So,
Stats are fun.
stats class was easy
It
cheesy,
was
lemon
so
squeezy.
easy.
It was boring.
It was only
Yeah.
$700 for me to get. I mean, IBUs 25 to 45. This is kind of interesting because the final body on this is actually really, really dry. Final body, it says 1007 to 1011, which I'm going to say I've seen these lower than that.
Yeah.
I've seen some down to like 1002 and 1004, and I think that's 100% fine as long as it still has some fluff. But 25 to 45 IBUs for that low of final gravity is actually a lot on top of the roast. That's where we're saying all the bitterness is in there, but through nitroiness and other methods, we actually still make a relatively smooth beer out of it.
Yeah. And again, you're achieving a lot of those IBUs through a long boil on your hops with minimal hops rather than loading it up with hops. Not a hoppy beer. A lot of your bitterness should be coming through from the malts. SRM 25 to 40, and 25, some people are probably thinking that's pretty low.
Very low.
But again, you can achieve blackness at 25 as long as you really get that super deep color of red. Once it gets into your glass, that is going to look black.
Yeah.
40, I mean, anything at 40 is black.
Yeah, at 40. Yeah.
That's
On the
just
25
dark.
side. And it's also the types of malts you're using, because all the color and majority of the color, besides what comes from the cooking process, comes from black colored malts. It's not going to have kind of that range in between. It's going to look black.
Yeah.
Exactly. OG 1036, 1044. That's also an important thing to notice. A lot of the time, Irish stouts are pretty darn light as far as alcohol is concerned. I think natural Guinness is what, like 3.5, 3.2, 3.5, somewhere right in
Really?
there. When it was originally made, it is very low beer.
I know
And
it
there's a
originally.
point to that. It's because where these beers developed, you're supposed to go down to the pub and have a lot.
Instead of water, you drink beer.
Yeah.
And it's really nice for Damon because he can have like at least 2 of them now.
Hey, at least. You bet.
2.5.
You know. put on
growing.
that weight. His body can take a
We're
little
growing.
more.
We're growing.
We're growing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to call you Damon. Big Logan.
Oh,
Big,
Logan.
strong
I thought it was
Logan.
Bro Logan, but
Bro Logan?
Bro
I like
Logan?
Bro
I like
Logan.
that better.
I like, all right.
I'm not as smart as Logan.
You
though,
should go
so.
on the JRE
Bro
podcast
Logan?
because then you'd have Bro Logan and Joe Rogan.
There you go. But yeah, you're supposed to hit these beers with a really good session, even the higher one at 1044. But also keep in mind, if you take a 1044 OG and then ferment it all the way down to 1007, that's probably still over 5%.
For sure.
When you ferment these down as dry as they can be, do keep that in mind. That
And if you
you're gonna
do
go
a
little
Brett
high.
finish, it can get even drier. It's
Even
probably going
drier.
to continue to ferment
Because Brett.
because Brett.
ABV, the standard ABV is 4 to 4.5 on there. Again, like we were just talking about, these are supposed to be session beers. You're not supposed to hit, you're not supposed to, whatever. You're not traditionally supposed to hit over 5% or even like 4 or 5. Because again, you're drinking this beer because the water sucks and you don't want to get sick. You're drinking this beer for a food substance as well. You know, it's
So you got the proteins from the Flake Barley.
Flake Barley. Exactly. So 100% you can go higher than those. Just try to make sure to keep everything in balance. When you do go higher, you end up getting a little bit more sweetness, a little more fluffiness, and you're kind of taking it out of that dry Irish stout realm. But yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Any final comments on Irish Stout before we do some Q&A and then go into topic 2?
Is there?
We got time for topic 2?
Uh,
There was something about coffee beans. How do you add coffee beans without adding color? The way we do it is actually just we whole bean, and we don't do a super dark roast. And so the darker the roast, the more powdery the outside is and the more color comes out of it. Medium and light roast coffees actually have a lot of the expression of oils on the outside and some roast character without all the color. And so if you do a whole bean, you can turn, a very light beer into still a pretty light beer while getting a lot of that coffee flavor.
And then how much per 5-gallon batch?
Very, very little. Like as little as 1 to 2 ounces per 5-gallon batch.
Yeah.
it's going to vary a little bit on your coffee and how pronounced you want that coffee flavor to be, whether you're using a lighter roast, a darker roast, and to mimic some of the darker grains in a white stout, normally going for a more bolder, expressive, darker roast is the way to go. But 1 to 2 ounces, and base that on how potent your coffee is, not in caffeine, but in flavor and roast.
Tim, do you have a coffee soda on?
We just brewed it last week. So we brewed a chocolate coffee stout. It's going to be on nitro. And we plan to do half a pound to a pound of whole beans, basically dry hop.
Per barrel?
It's a 1 barrel batch.
Yeah.
1 barrel batch. So we're going to do anywhere from half to a pound whole bean. And after we crash it, we're going to just throw it in and let it cold steep for like 12-ish hours.
Yep.
12 to 15 hours.
So half pound to a pound, that's, a whole barrel, that's 8 ounces to 16 ounces, which comes out to like 1.4 to 2.2-ish.
I think for your
per
Caster
5 gallons.
Muncher 7 barrel, you did like 3 pounds.
I did a little under 3 pounds for 7 barrels.
Yeah.
It was about 3 pounds.
But you get a ton of flavor, and it depends on the coffee, but you get way more flavor than you'd expect.
Yeah. Scott Nutkick. Great name. Love it. Why not refer to gravity in degrees Plato? Because we are Americans and we love degrees firemen and not degrees calculus.
That's right.
Same reason we still have feet and inches and we're not on the metric system.
No, and that beer honestly has so many different ones. In that it's the same thing as saying, why don't we go in bricks? Because we chose to go in original gravity.
Honestly, in my mind, that's one of the few times that I think degrees. I think OG is actually easily calculable, more so to me than degrees Plato or bricks. So OG scales with the sugar content. OG to FG is easy to calculate alcohol percentage. That's one of the times where most freedom units are more difficult to calculate. OG to FG is pretty easy to calculate.
Yeah, it's again, that's what we grew up using. That's what we're used to on that. It may be way easier for you to use Play-Doh. It may be way easier for you to use bricks. I know at least 2 brewers in town in our town in Spokane who use bricks, and it's one of those that are like, why do you use bricks? Well, because that's where they came from. They love bricks. I see SRM. Well, it's the same deal with Degrees Levabond, SRM, EBC on that. Why do you use one over the other?
Because we know we can do the mental math on it.
Because that's the one that you use. Honestly, in brewing, there are so many different measurements out there, then all of them are not standardized. Use what you're most comfortable with.
Yeah. All right. What? Any other questions before we try to?
There was a question about a guy not getting a keg. Patrick his kegerator is going to be delayed. Can he store his keg in a normal fridge?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Same temperature.
And then
A kegerator is just a mini fridge with a tap handle or a tap built into it, basically.
You do want the CO2. That's. You either have to bottle condition your keg at that point in time, or you have to have your CO2 before the kegerator is delivered. So if you do bottle condition your beer in the keg, that should be fine. But you want a way to purge oxygen out one way or another. So that's probably the more important part of that question, is whether or not you can get it CO2'd.
I assumed it was carb, so that's why I answered it the way I did.
Yeah, I thought about that. I didn't think about it until after. I was like, oh, wait,
Afterwards, right?
Wait a
he's
minute.
not going from a bright tank to a keg. He's probably going
Probably the ferment.
from a
Fermenter.
carboy. Sometimes we think in commercial brewery world.
All right.
And Tim, there was a question that was very specifically for you about guy, first time watcher, liked the conversation, never made a sour, but wanted to make one this summer. Any recommendations on first one out of the gate for a honey cream ale / Irish red crowd?
Honestly, especially for
Irish red.
an Irish red crowd, you're looking at Flanders red at that point. But I wouldn't go Flanders because that's way too acidic, and that's going to be super challenging for Irish red drinkers.
Yeah.
But take something like an Irish red, get a very light lactose sour onto it, and then add something in like cherries, or actually don't add in cherries because that's a lot harder than you think it is. I would love that. Well, add in something like raspberries, or even like white raspberries or black cap if you can get it. Then you're gonna keep those nice kind of caramely sweet flavors rolling through that they're going to like. The acidity is going to match up with the acidity of those berries. So even if they're not sauerkraut drinkers, it will still help them get over the sourness, and it will still be really delicious. That's a great way to do it. The honey cream ale, having the clash between the honey sweetness as well as the sourness might not be great, especially if you're using honey malt. Personally, I don't like the cloying sweetness of honey malt, and in a sour, that might be really cloying. But again, if you have standard beer drinkers that you're trying to brew a sour for, fruit's going to be your best friend. Ooh, if you're going to light cream ale, do it cucumber, and everybody will drink it. It will be phenomenal.
Yeah. Cucumbers are fun.
Yeah, it go extremely well in sours, extremely well in light beers, and the flavor actually gets really residually sweet. So that helps out in sours, makes it super refreshing.
A lot, if you got extra kegerator space, this might be a good spot to just practice blending, or like get used to blending. You can make one neutral, really, really sour beer and blend it into whatever.
Yeah. And that's actually a great way to do it, too. Make a super extreme sour beer, blend it in until you love the flavor. There you go. There was one more on souring that we missed. Tanner Cole. Yeah, dual part question. Would you add... Oh, never mind.
That's coffee.
That is his coffee.
We did that.
We answered that one already.
I know. There was...
No,
Chumbly,
we
my
just
Irish
answered
Red,
one,
which
I
will
think
be
you were right.
in
Yeah.
the mail
Yeah,
next
so-
week. Nice. Lacked some malty sweetness. I thought I'd get a
yeah,
large
something else,
portion
yeah.
of that from Red X. Thinking of pulling back on that and adding a touch of Carry Munich 2. Carry Munich 2 is a pretty good way to get some malty sweetness. I do really like Red X, but if you wanted to use it, Red X is a Munich type, so it's not going to have any caramely sweetness. I also like to challenge brewers to try to get as much from technique as possible.
Maillard.
So if you wanted to try to really go for it, I would say try to do a small side decoction. Just take a little bit of it, caramelize it on your stove or something like that, and then pour that back into the entire mash. I think that's a fun way to get more character and keep you more involved in the brew day, besides just changing the recipe.
Do a full decoction.
Also, I would suggest thinking about a lot of different malts at this point to achieve that. To get some, keep the maltiness, get a little bit more sweetness, but still kind of keeping that red character. I personally would suggest something like Viking Dark Munich or German Dark Munich. Both, Viking is at 8 Lovabond, and most of the German best malts Weyermann is somewhere right about 10 to 12. All of them, especially the Viking. I love the Viking. It's very biscuity. It still has those dark, caramely, fruity, figgy date flavors in there, but you're not going to go caramel sweet on it. And a small proportion of that is pretty damn awesome, honestly. Yeah, I make a great red out of that, actually. And that's a good malt to think about, too. And a little bit different that we don't normally think about.
Greg Shepard is from Crooked Rooster up in Sandpoint. That's dope.
Send us beer.
Bring beer. He says he's coming in.
Oh, yeah, bring us
He's
beer.
gonna drive down.
Bring us beer. We'll trade beer.
Hour and a half.
Also, Daniel, you're welcome for the bingo point, but also send us beer.
Yes, send us beer. Nipa taking this time in conical.
BC's beer reviews. Cheers, guys. Cheers, BC's beer review. Are we caught up? Should we?
There's one question from
No.
JD that
That's what I'm going to hit right now. JB, with a Nipa New England IPA, taking its time to finish up in a conical, would you dump the cone warm if you were worried about the beer spending too long on the dry hops? Yeah, you're not going to catch all the dry hops, probably doing a yeast dump, but you still want to get it off the hop material. That's the second question. Are most hops in the cone 9 days in? If you were 9 days in, you were on the hops far too long. Far too long. Our personal belief is that 3 days is your target. 5 days is a max. After 5 days, we have found that it starts to pull vegetal flavors. It starts to pull the green, the chlorophyll, the actual grassiness from the plant material rather than just the hoppiness on that. So if it is in there, if the dry hops are in there that long, yes, I would 100% try and drop them out. When we try to do it, we normally try to do it. And I mean, I know it's beer. It doesn't always happen. You do the best you can. But we try to hit it at least 3 to 5 days before package on that, or put it in a section that we can transfer it off the hops into another vessel if it still does need to finish up. But if it's been in there for 9 days, drop that sucker. Get all the hops out of there you can and let it finish out. It will be much, much, much better.
And it's also, I don't you already mentioned this, but make sure everything's under pressure. If you've got a spunning valve, then you can really shoot that hop cone out pretty easily. If you have the whole thing under pressure. If not, then you need to have a way to put CO2 onto the top of it while you dump the cone.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on to topic number 2 real quick. It's going to be a quick topic, but seltzers have evolved, and it's something worth mentioning. Basically, a lot of styles of, I think, what we had back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Mike's Hard Lemonade. It's all been rebranded into Lemonade Seltzer, or whatever.
Something, yeah.
But that also opens up a lot of possibilities because the world is kind of open, and especially the world of craft beer drinkers and beer brewers are getting into making fun seltzers, and we can use our brewing ingenuity to turn that into milkshake seltzers and all sorts of weird stuff. So let's talk about the world that we've got there and ways to backsweeten / possibilities for making non-low-calorie seltzers.
Or getting your calories to stay low seltzer, but actually have flavor. So let's talk about seltzer sugars to start off with. And this is a really, really cool concept that even in Spokane we're seeing a bunch of people playing around with. Thomas, who we always talk about, he makes the meads, braggots, and all that kind of fun stuff at Amherst. He makes a hydromel. Yeah, you can have a beer if you want.
I mean,
Get
from the
Oh yeah,
fridge.
go for it. Yes, beers, please. Anyway.
I forgot we got an assistant now.
Yeah, we do. So he's making a thing called Hydromel, which basically is seltzer made with honey. He's making a light sessionable mead as a seltzer. And it's got some really cool flavors in there from the different honeys he's using.
A lot of people in Spokane, unfortunately, use cane sugar for seltzers. But any simple sugar does work. I really like Thomas's Hydromel because it comes with natural flavor built in from the honey.
Yeah.
There's other sugars you can use that work similarly to that. He's done one that also blended in like raw maple, for example, and some of that character actually comes through. If you're not doing that, if you're doing 100% neutral seltzer, I think dextrose is the best sugar. It's just a glucose molecule, and that glucose molecule is the easiest thing for yeast to eat.
Okay. Yeah. Glucose is I'll get ours out. I use my knife.
Bottle opener.
Yeah, it's on my keys, which are it's in my coat right behind me. Anyway, glucose.
Oh.
Like Peter was saying, glucose is the
Flats a bottle opener.
most simple form of sugar out there. It's the easiest for yeast to get after, which means it's going to ferment out completely
Stout.
going to be the most likely to ferment out completely, not leave any residual flavors. So glucose is great. But do think about other sugars. There are different things that you can add in. We experimented around with some invert or Belgian candy sugar too. Just the clear is what we did, but because it's that split sugar, it actually leaves some residual fluffiness in the beer.
And natural acidity.
What other ones did we do? We did brown sugar on one. That was interesting. Specific flavors, I wouldn't say it's good for everything. It does give you a little bit of... I'm good on this. Well, okay, fine. It does give you some rumminess. Sorry.
And when it comes to backsweetening, you can backsweeten with sugars too. We're now calling basically every sugar ferment a hard seltzer, but that gives us kind of an open world to play with backsweetening. If you don't mind not being low calorie, you can backsweeten with things like all the Monin syrups that you can get for coffee stands. You can make big flavors like that. You can backsweeten with actual sugar, with juice, things like that. Or if you want to keep it low calorie, you have the option of monk fruit sugar, stevia, sorbitol, and aspartame, and all those bad sugars. But
They taste
monk
like...
fruit sugar is
taste
good. And then we have milkshake seltzers, which are lactose backsweetened seltzers, and all that is possible
I think,
thanks to science.
Yeah. We might possibly be drinking Jake's beer. It just is a white cap that says Stout. And I think Jake said that he had one in there like that. If this is your beer, raise your hand. And it's awesome. It's really fun to do some things like that. We've been experimenting with lactose in there and creating some pina colada, also a lime in the coconut drink.
Lime in the coconut.
That one was phenomenal. Some coconut, lime juice, lime powder going in there with lactose to make it a little more creamy. And the thickness, the sweetness was absolutely amazing in it. As craft brewers, this is something that we should embrace, is actually making big, flavorful, and sweet seltzers. Adding sugars into this to create flavors instead of lightly flavored, this is going to get me drunk bubbly water.
Yeah.
Which is, there's nothing wrong with. I will crush the shit out of those. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place, for sure. Jimmy actually mentioned Thomas's peanut butter bochet, which was a seltzer, which was really fun.
good.
Bochet is basically you take honey and you cook it down to caramelize all the sugars on the honey and add more character before turning it into whatever fermented product you're making. So similar way to get a sugar in there that's going to be fermented and add character to a hard seltzer.
You basically Maillarded or caramelized the honey and add some really cool, fun flavors to it. And that's something that we should be thinking about as craft brewers, is doing stuff like this.
And you know what you should be thinking about? Hitting that like button. If you've learned something today, you should repay the favor by using the thumbs up that's below this video.
And subscribe.
You see the thumbs up, and then you click. It's if somebody needed a visual representation.
Boop.
Wait.
No.
I was going to go for a three-knuckler. Anyway, Bruno Dave, Cantillon Goose is a sour blended from 3 different years. That is an amazing blend, and you are right, sir. If anyone has some Cantillon, and I don't even care what type of Cantillon it is, it could be their Lambic, could be their Goose, anything, please just send it to us. 100% send
Tanner
it to
Cole
us.
says Untitled Art makes them thick. There's not enough C's on that. Tasty seltzer.
Adam Chumbley, yes, 100%. Now, reason that Peter is saying Monin, I will say Monin and 1883 are the two syrups that I would use in that because they don't have preservatives and they're natural flavorings. Their preservative is citric acid, so it's not going to affect the flavor or fermentation of your beer at all, where if you go for like Torriani Da Vinci, a lot of the time it's potassium sorbate, which is going to ruin your beer. Don't do it. They're very good natural pure flavors. If you're going to go to coconut, 1883 if you can find it. It's a double fold French syrup on there, and it's just absolutely beautiful. But that is something you should think about. These Monin syrups are absolutely phenomenal for back-sweetening beers and seltzers. They have beautiful, beautiful flavors in them.
I've used Da Vinci before, though. I used the blueberry, sugar-free, and the Heffy, and people loved it. I didn't care for it, but everybody liked it.
I was afraid of that blueberry. It was a lot like the Mr. Sketch Smelly Marker blueberry. It smelled very fake to me.
It blew in a week.
Sometimes fake flavor is the best flavor, in all honesty. Green apple, Jolly Rancher, one of my favorites. That does not in any way, shape, or form taste like a green apple, but that's going in my face hole.
Yeah. I'm a fan of Monin also because of the type of, if you use Monin sugar-free, if you use Monin sugar-free, the type of back-sweetened sugar that they have in there is, I want to say it's actual stevia instead of the sorbitol or aspartame, and I want to say sugar-free Da Vinci and sugar-free Torriani use sorbitol.
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yes, Adam Chumbley, you can 100% just say that.
Just
Da Vinci,
saying.
they're okay, but use some Monin in it. Don't use bad... My thought, don't use bad flavorings in a beer because that's just going to make it worse. If you're going to do something, just make sure that you actually want to drink it. It's not worth the 20 cents cheaper that Da Vinci is to not get a good flavor.
Didn't have blueberry.
I know Monin doesn't have
didn't
blueberry.
Have it, so I had to use Da Vinci.
Yeah.
And people still talk about it.
And that's it, and it's all over the place too, because Amaretti has some really amazing fruit flavors. There are some of them that are really good. A lot of them, Peter doesn't like them too much. There's a lot of them that I taste. They're just like, bro, this tastes fake. This tastes like it came out of a bottle. It's not a bad flavor, but it tastes like it came out of a bottle.
For 100% natural flavors, our number one to go to is Beanilla.com.
Mm-hmm.
They have all sorts of, they have like raspberry powder, strawberry powder, which is just strawberries turned into a powder. Same thing with grapefruit. They've got a lot of natural flavorings, like including like pistachio and black walnut flavoring that are just pure extracts done the most natural way possible, and they taste exactly like what they're supposed to taste like.
But don't overuse it.
No, definitely not, or else it can get
very small amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best overall option is the joint option. So you get, all the natural flavors from the Beanilla, and then you just kick it up a little bit with some artificial flavor, because in certain fruits, a little bit of that artificial flavor is what triggers people's brain to think blueberry, and then all the natural flavor that you put in there is what, makes it really, really good blueberry.
Banana flavoring, I don't like it. And it's not something, put bananas in your beer. Use a Hefeweizen yeast. Yeah. But banana flavoring, no way, shape, or form tastes like bananas. And yes, I know the flavoring was actually based off an extinct form of banana that we don't have anymore, and that's not what we eat. But when people taste something banana flavored, they're expecting that fake banana flavoring and not banana that we eat flavoring in there. So there are some of these that do kind of need that little bit of fakeness to it to really get people to think, oh, that's the flavor I should be drinking.
Doesn't Omega have a Bonanza? It's like
Bonanza's
extra
different.
Banana, though?
No, it's a little different. So
but
Bonanza is...
Hefty yeast.
We're assuming it's Weinstefaner's Hefty yeast, but it's a German Hefeweizen yeast that they clipped the phenol producer off.
Wow.
So instead of producing banana bread, clove banana, it produces green, unripe banana fruit, and it's awesome. I love that.
The ester that's produced is actually called isoamyl acetate, and it actually is the same flavor in this case, and it's naturally produced by yeast fermentation. It actually is the same flavor that they put in like runts.
Yeah.
Isoamyl acetate is an ester that can be grabbed and turned into a flavoring, and it's used in banana popsicles.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, is that the banana popsicle doesn't taste like a banana. That's a completely different flavoring. But if you made a banana popsicle taste like real banana, people would think it's weird, not right.
Yeah.
So sometimes you need it.
You got some questions.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the KOs pretty here soon because that's a good one. But like Daniel's saying, he made a spruce tip blended with a little bit of Monin and Huckleberry right off the tap. Huckleberry is another one of those. Huckleberry flavoring of anything doesn't taste like real huckleberries. But if you make it taste like a real huckleberry, most people are like, weird. That's not huckleberry.
Yeah.
They want that kind of fake flavoring. So don't be afraid to use those, is what we're saying.
What's
All
like
right.
Jimmy
It tastes great.
saying banana Laffy Taffy. Use
Oh,
a
yeah.
fake banana.
That's a banana Laffy Taffy. That's another one. Anyway, KO Brew, we're going to get a little off this topic because KO has a great question here. Does flake barley and flake wheat need to hit a certain temp to convert in the mash? Are they similar to flaked oats that seem to take higher mash temp to convert?
Sort of. So, I mean, the answer is not really. Basically, your enzymes are going to be working at the same temperature regardless, and what enzymes are acting on it to create that conversion are going to have to do with everything that's not your flaked stuff. So if you're using something like OptiMash, for example, that has a range of enzymes that can work at a low and high temperature. That said, there is some sort of mechanical breakdown that happens with higher temps in general. And part of that is protein degradation. All those are going to be higher protein, and when proteins break down, they can either completely degrade and turn into that mushy, stuff that looks gross when you're done mashing, or they can also turn into more soluble proteins. And those soluble proteins will break down. I don't think they're really hurting any sugar source that would be in there, though. So my guess would be just keep your mash fluffy so that the higher proteins aren't making it so that you can't sparge as well, and then you shouldn't have a problem regardless.
Yeah.
The fluffiness and if you wanted to mechanically help out, if stirring the mash could also help out.
You want me to rinse the glasses for you guys?
Of course.
Yeah, sure.
Please, sir, may I have another?
SP.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Seltzer Sugars. We haven't... we kind of delved into a lot of those things, but I do also want to get back into encouraging people to use alternative sugar sources for their seltzers for some extra flavors. One thing that you were saying about the Acer Glycerin that Thomas brought by before, doing the maple syrup in that mead was pretty darn awesome. What could be really cool is trying to create something like a maple old-fashioned type of seltzer using the maple sugar to come out of it, and then adding in your bitters, your orange peel to it, maybe some oak to mimic some of that whiskey on there. But yeah, using some of these alternative sugar sources to get all different, more complex flavors to come out of these seltzers. We don't need to make White Claw at home. That exists. And it's just about as cheap to make it as it is to buy it. You should be making something better for yourself. Have more respect for yourself. Make a better drink, right?
TT, any idea how Budweiser made a zero carbohydrate beer? Well, speaking of enzymes,
Hey,
Where is he? I'm right here.
hey. Yes, for William Robinson, if you're trying to fill out your bingo card, that question has already been addressed. And if you haven't noticed, Logan just put on muscle and is now sexy. Well, he was sexy before in, a little wiry way. You're like, yeah, okay. I could watch you climb up and down things. But now he's like built and built.
yeah, now we have big
It's
Logan.
about drive.
Bro, Logan.
It's about power. We stay hungry. We devour. Drinking some beer right now. We're
Well played. Well played. Oh, no, wait. We were still on this Budweiser thing, but thank you for bringing that up. The
Oh my god.
Budweiser, how do they make zero carbohydrate beer? Maybe they turn all of the carbohydrates into something else, like alcohol. Enzymes. You're using enzymes and a mashing process to basically convert all the starches and everything like that into sugars. That way the alcohol can fully ferment it out. Now,
tastes like peas, like canned peas.
Yeah, I don't know what this is.
it might just be a really old IPA that went bad.
To be honest,
Oh,
I can't drink
weird.
that.
That is...
Next. Sorry.
whoever made this one, we probably waited too long. Anyway, they're basically fully converting everything into sugars, letting the yeast eat all the carbohydrates, turn it into alcohol, and then adding in intensely flavored things to their beer to make sure that survives all the way through. It's just full fermentation.
Matthew Harkus. Glad to tune in doing a Kentucky Common today. Just finished work. Is a combination of rice and corn a good idea? It can be. It's going to make it fluffier. That corn flavor actually is a very indicative flavor of a Kentucky Common. So if you want the actual Kentucky Common flavor, corn is a necessity. That said, if you want to lighten up that corniness and add some flaked rice for whatever reason, I'm not going to say it's going to be better, but it won't be bad.
I love flaked rice more than corn when adding it into beers for that kind of light fluffiness and everything like that. I would personally say in a Kentucky Common, you need the corn. You need that flavor coming from the corn to be indicative of the Kentucky Common style. It doesn't mean that it will be bad if you add the rice in. It'll just be a little bit further away from the traditional style guidelines.
Dude, nobody can even see what you're doing.
So
There's a bottle opener right here. Just use it
Uh,
the proper way.
Adam Chumbley, you thought that the Kentucky Common had a 6-row base. That is not at all wrong. I think someone said in there that they normally make it out of like a bourbon mash, and that's also pretty true on there. The 6-row is what they had access to most often, so that is something that was used. The 6-row that they used is not the same as the 6-row that we have now. Our malts are a lot different from when this style originally developed, and I would say the reasons that they used 6-row and the flavor impact that it gave when the style originally developed is very much different from the 6-row that we have now. So just use a base 2. You can use 6-row if you want, but in this point in time in history and what we're doing with our malts, it's not going to be that big of a difference. Use what you have and what you most like. All right.
I like Heidelberg.
Yeah.
Love Heidelberg.
Heidelberg for a Kentucky Common.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's light. It's grainy. You really get that corn expression coming through. That's great. Great malt.
Great malt. Use it all the time.
How much lactose would you suggest for a 5-gallon batch of seltzer? So backsweetening with lactose, if you wanted to make like a milkshake seltzer, I'd probably use about a pound per 5 gallons. You can go a little bit above, a little bit below, but that's kind of like now you can really taste milkshakey degree.
That's kind of about where we go on there. I think we go anywhere from about 2 pounds to 5 pounds per 15 gallons, depending on what I'm doing. Like the pina colada one, I think that was about a pound and a half for 15 gallons because I just wanted a little bit of extra creaminess. For the lime and the coconut, that was 5 pounds because I really wanted to express like the coconut milk part of that. So kind of what you're doing on it. TT, you've done the AMG, Amyl, you've done the Amyl X4T, but you say that one, Peter, AMG?
Amyloglucosidase.
Yes, that one. Half of my tongue is numb. It's really hard for me to form that word in my mouth, plus beer. So that's not the only thing that they're using. They're more than likely, they're probably, this is in relevance to the question of how to get a 0-carb beer, and in all honesty, it's probably not 0 carb. It probably is just low enough to round down for label purposes, and you need to remember that. And on labels, those are rounding generally. It doesn't mean it's actually 0 carb. So, throwing the AMG into the fermentation, throwing some extra things like the beta-glucoside or the viscobuster, as well as an extra amylase enzyme into the mash is going to further help convert that.
Clarity firm as well on the pitching side.
On the pitching side, which is different than the AMG. That's a different enzyme that works in there, as well as using malts that super readily convert on that. So you're not using extra dextrin malts. You're not you're not using unfermentable sugar malts, no caramels, no dextrins, things like that. You're using fully fermentable malts, low proteins, all that kind of fun stuff. There's a lot more science that goes into it, and there's probably actually some lab work of them going through and doing specific processes that we as home brewers can't do to further reduce glutens.
That's the closest they can get.
There is a lot of money that gets involved in there. And then if you're reaching 2.4 carbs and somebody is still worried about that, they are worried about the wrong thing. 2.4 carbs in a single beer is not going to impact your diet too much.
KO Brewing, I have some light Munich malt around a year old. Should I toss it? No, do a single malt decoction with it.
Yeah.
The decoction will have some mechanical breakdown, and it'll also get rid of any DMSO, which is kind of the biggest negative flavor contributor that could have. So you can use it to reap all the sugars, and then with processes, kind of get rid of everything that would be bad from using it, like a regular malt.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Weiser already commented on that one. Jimmy, I do not believe we drank your Saison yet. Yeah, we got one or two. KO Brewing, you have some light Munich around a year old. Should you toss it?
That's what I just answered.
He just answered it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
He
was
said
reading
no. He
things.
said do a decoction.
Yeah.
to
Well,
get that
I was
stuff
going to talk about malts. Malted grain, if it's not cracked, is extremely shelf stable. Extremely. Technically, it can go out tens of years, maybe, I mean, a long time.
If it's kept cool and dry.
Yeah.
Like, moisture kills it. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things it can do wrong for it. But there's also ways to make sure that it's going to be safe no matter what.
If you have good storage practices, you can use it for a long, long time. The more modified it is, the more flavors from that modification it's going to lose. You know, things like caramel malts, roasted malts, stuff like that. The older it gets, it's not going to be as good as, say, just a base 2-row or something like that. But that's kind of one of the reasons we as humans attach to grains is when it's stored properly, they're almost perfect to store forever. Malting changes that. Keep them dry. Don't let it mold. All right. What do we got? You know, people are...
What address would go well with Dr. Rudy hops in a smash New Zealand Pilsner?
Address?
Yeah, if you're sending it somewhere, I'll just send it to 17018 East Sprague Avenue.
Or 10604 East 16th.
Eh, you know, the first one's better.
Additives.
But...
Additives would go well with a Dr. Rudy Smash New Zealand Pilsner. If you're talking about water chemistry, if you're going Pilsner, I'd go relatively low, but you know, medium sulfates like 40 to 50 in the sulfates range. Other than that, keep everything like bone low, like less than 10 parts per million.
that's kind of one of the keys to Pilsner is there is not much in that water at all.
Also
At
use
all.
ascorbs.
Definitely use some ascorbs. That will really help it. Not just because we like saying ascorbs, but that will actually really help
Yeah.
it.
Part away.
All right.
It's part of it, but not all of it. Dang it.
We're running low on questions, and we are technically open right now, so let's work on getting this thing closed out.
All right. Anybody got some final questions? Throw them through here.
Also, smash the like button. Only 28 of you have, and I am personally offended by that number, so fix it.
There's only one acceptable number to stop at.
69.
Check out No Drop Brewing on social medias, including Facebook, Instagram, and Pornhub.
Definitely not that one.
Are you on what is
It's
it?
OnlyFans?
The red page?
RedTube?
RedTube.
I don't even know what that is.
What?
RedTube.
No.
What's the XXX one?
Ooh, Braziers?
Braz, yeah, you're on Brazzers.
Oh,
Braziers.
totally.
Yeah, Brazzers.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
the one, yeah.
No.
He was on an episode of Money Talks.
Just
You would not believe
Facebook.
what he did.
But you should go like all of his social media stuff. He makes some really awesome beer. Go check him out. He does some German styles.
Good to see you too, Adam.
Buy some of his merch. Buy some of our merch because merch makes the world go round, and it's really fun to see people wearing our stuff. I mean, take a picture of yourself in it, hashtag it, show us your Genus, and we'll give you a thumbs up and a high five and like you a
Yeah.
little bit more.
A little bit, and then
You got
some.
got anything going on at your place? Any good news you wanna give the peoples?
Shout out. Besides the coffee chocolate.
Yeah, a couple
beer.
new beers. Well, you talked about you mentioned the Dortmunder last week. That is technically
yeah.
a collab because I just look pretty.
Yeah, that's gonna be so good.
We have a Vienna lager coming. That's new. The chocolate coffee stout is new. A Rausch beer should be coming on next week. That's new. And then our Schwarz and Doppelbock should be coming in a couple weeks. The Berliner, been waiting like 50 days now. It's still just not sour enough. But yeah, a lot of new beer coming. Yeah, we already had all our parties, so we got the Lester Cup going on right now. We have a new surprise coming up in April
Chester
for
Cup?
Valley. We don't know what it's called yet.
And somebody stole my hops for that from the back, so we need to order more. Whichever one of you jerks did that.
The Mo Lester Cup.
Probably not. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming.
We're
up.
better than Lester Cup.
Jeez.
The Ultra Super Mega Lester Cup.
Super, how do I incorporate Saiyan and Lester together?
You can't.
Super Saiyan Lester.
Super
Saiyan?
Super Saiyan Lester.
Super Saiyan?
Saiyan.
The Charizard XY version.
All right, so I'm going to answer a couple of these. We're getting off topic. There's some really cool questions in here. You stored your adjuncts in sealed bags, airtight, and food buckets. That's pretty good. Any issues with changing aromas in individual bags? The longer it is, the little bit less aromas you're going to have off of that. But if you're storing it in a steel bag in a bucket away from heat as well as moisture, you're probably good to go. Lager yeast biotransform, and I would say maybe dependent, but that's not something that I've heard of from a lot of lager yeast. How about you, Peter?
So every yeast does biotransform. It's just to what degree, basically. And again, it's going to be dependent on the lager yeast. Almost all of them will produce some level of beta-glucosidase, and then some of them will do beta-lyase as well. But maybe not to the degree. Basically, what's happening is they're during fermentation, putting out an enzyme. One of those enzymes likes to cleave glucosides from hop compounds, so you get a sugar off of it and you get a aromatic component. And then the other one works on creating sultan thiols, basically. And it can do that in two different ways, but that's a whole different topic. Every yeast biotransform, it's a matter of to what degree.
Yeah. Kevin Ray, would 4 ounces Cascade and 4 ounces Idaho 7 and Whirlpool be good for a pale IPA? Try it and tell us. Yes, it probably actually will be pretty good.
Yeah,
frequency of the show is every day. You just need to be on ESPN the Ocho.
Yeah. In reality, we have never missed a Sunday in the last 4.5 years. So,
Right. Ginger in a Pilsner for Pamela, I believe. You can do it. You're taking it out of the Pilsner range. I would say be very restrained because that's such a light beer anyway. The ginger can probably take over almost immediately. That being said, I have had some really good ginger Pilsners, one from Cascade and one from Rogue, I believe.
Pamela, I do not love you anymore. Not.
Mexican, Lars, there you are. Honey malt to a Pilsner? I would say absolutely not. If you want to add complexity to a Pilsner, then you need to I'm going to sound mean again. I'm really not trying to sound mean.
No.
Pilsners are complex on their own, even when they only have Pilsner malt and Saaz in it. It's your process that's going to bring out the delicious complexity of a Pilsner. Now, you can add other things in it to really kind of boost those flavors if you don't want to do
Pilsner-based
all
New
that
England
stuff.
IPA.
Oh,
Pilsner-based New England IPA?
that's what he meant.
Okay, never mind.
Pilsen malt.
I would still say no. I don't like honey malt.
Yeah, we don't like honey malt here. It's just in general, but it could be good.
It could be good if
That's beyond it. We're not going to tell you what not to do
Yeah.
because there's plenty of people should brew differently than us because that's
Right.
how we find out more stuff and that's how we get to taste more tasty beers.
Rogue makes a honey kolsch. That's really good.
it's really good. Honey malt is super cloying in my opinion. I think people use it in a way too high of a percentage. So if you're using it, keep it low or use brew malt, which is basically the same thing but not as cloying.
Adam Tremblay, Greg Shepard. If you wake up on Sunday morning thinking there's no way there's a Genus live stream today, get on YouTube immediately.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just said that. The Mexican Amber. How much Red X is too much Red X? And in all honesty, there isn't a limit on that. You could go 100% Red X on that and still
I think 101%
fine.
would probably be too much.
maybe. It'd be 105%. So you
you?
can go up to 103%. 104 is too far, and 105 is right out.
There we go.
But you can use 100% Red X if you want to. That would probably make something pretty delicious. It is meant to be used 100% if
All right,
you
let's
want.
work on closing this out so we can tear down and get opened up.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you for
right.
watching. All the thumbs uppies, subscribe.
Subscribe, like.
Subscribe to Big Logan's Pornhub channel.
Jesus.
You should do that. It is very exciting. I watch it at least daily. Yeah, like all of our stuff, like all their stuff, slam the like buttons, buy some of our merch, because we really do honestly like seeing it everywhere. It's pretty cool to see that stuff out and about. Hashtag show us your Genus, and tune in when we throw this on every Sunday. We will almost always at least reference Logan here, you know.
Some farm.
Swole Logan.
That always happens.
It happens, because we love him. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, guys. Doodles.
Golden Naked Oats, yes. Use it.
Yes,
Use
Golden
it.
Naked Oats.